welcome to Ponder and Practice, the podcast for professional, high-achieving women who are ready to swap hustle for harmony, exhaustion for energy, and pain for power. I'm Dr. Katherine Hoffman, and I help value-driven, ambitious women achieve their goals by setting artful, integrity-aligned boundaries that create space for meaningful work and sincere connection. So, are you ready to discover the power of no? Well, let's get started. Hey there, friend. Welcome to another episode of Ponder and Practice. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I am so excited to share with you a conversation I had with Nedra Rezinas, who is a marketing coach, and she helps folks with marketing strategy and social media stuff and all that kind of fun information and maybe things that a lot of business owners don't really want to do or don't really know how to do. And I really loved having this conversation with Nedra because she speaks honestly about a lot of the things that I think that we don't talk enough about, especially as small business owners, and also as people, if I'm being honest. And so in this episode, it is focused more for folks who do own a business or who are in business for themselves. But even if you're not, the topics, I think, translate to other aspects of life really easily. And we talk about, how to learn to focus on your strengths, what it means and what it looks like to have courage to actually be who you are in the world, and why that really matters that you're able to do that. We talk about, the fact that if you're not willing to receive from the people around you, from the world at large, you're not really going to be able to give very generously. And how to learn those lessons of abundance in the world. And then, why it really matters to kind of put your ego aside and get comfortable with failing fast and learning really quickly so that you can improve and do better over the course of your business or your life. And then we also talk a little bit about high sensitivity and what that looks like as a small business owner. And probably you're doing a lot of networking things and whatnot. And so we talk about how to cope in those situations when you are someone who is highly sensitive, and how to get through those situations where it can be like just a lot of information coming at you. Like you can read the whole room and you sort of are aware of how everyone is feeling and how everyone is doing, and how to really get through that in a way that is graceful and elegant and effective, so that you don't just leave whatever event feeling burnt out and like you didn't get anything out of it. At any rate, without further ado, here is our conversation. This is an interview with Nedra Rezinas. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed having it. All right, Nedra. Hi, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Catherine. This is really a nice treat.
Yeah, I love having these conversations because you and I both, I think, do like 30-minute coffee chats or whatever, but it's nice. Mm-hmm. It's selfish to do these conversations sometimes because I can just like sit and listen to someone and do a little bit deeper dive. So it's always a good time. So you and I met how long ago now? Like a year and a half?
Yeah, a little bit over a year ago, something like that. Yeah.
And you are really, we're going to talk about this more, but you're a connecting kind of person. And so our initial contact was through this networking group that you host called Wonder Women in Business, and it's local to Portland. And so we'll return to that later, but just so folks have context about our relationship, that's where we're coming from. But can you tell folks who you are and what you do exactly?
Yeah, my name is Nedra Rezinas, and I am a marketing coach. So one of the things that I do is provide mostly service-based professionals with a custom-built roadmap to their marketing. So a lot of times I get people saying I'm overwhelmed by marketing, or I hate social media, or all these different things, and I'm like, I get it. And so I'd like to break down the how of what they should be doing and help them learn to delegate and outsource so they don't do it all themselves, because that is the crux of it. And we've all been there. I've been there. And it's so nice to be able to trust other people with different assets of your business, especially marketing, and get that out there. And that way you can focus on what is important to you, which is working with your clients. The client work is usually what people love the most, not the marketing, not the accounting, things like that. So that's where I serve people the best.
Mm-hmm. And I'm interested in your, like, how you got to where you're at, because I've been able to have the pleasure of see you unfold in some new ways, even over the short time that we've known each other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and something that I was never told before I went into business for myself was how much of an iterative process it is, and how much shift and change not only can happen, but is expected over time. And so I'm curious to
Mm-hmm.
hear more about your own story about how things have unfolded over the course of your career.
Yeah. I think it all started with me convincing myself that I should be a programmer, web designer many, many years ago. I was just thinking about this yesterday, and how I I remember I was at .com. This was like in year 2000, 2001. I remember trying to learn C, which is a really complicated language in my book. And I even had the company pay for me to learn it. And I remember just going to class and going, I don't get this. This is really hard. And so just learning to accept that kind of you have these self identities in your world where you're like, I think I'm going to be this. This is who I am. And then accepting that you're not, that's not who you are. And I just read this book where it's all about focusing on your strengths. And I think that's where I'm finally coming from, is seeing what gifts I have and what I can give the world, and not worrying about my weaknesses, and learning how to, again, outsourcing and getting people to help you with that, and acknowledging it, and coming to terms with it, which I think is really hard for a lot of us, especially as a business owner. You feel like you have to do it all, and I definitely have been there and done that, and it didn't work so well.
I was just journaling this morning, not only about like having to do it all, but also feeling like I have to do things a certain way because all of
Right.
the messaging I'm getting from different places, and you and I are both really big readers. And so we're always like taking in
Hmm.
different information and trying to learn and grow. But like
Yeah.
everybody has a different thing that they do. And like I
Hmm.
can't do all the things the ways that all the people are saying that I should be doing them. And so yeah, it's been challenging for me at least to kind of block out the noise and really focus. Like, what am I
Yeah,
doing?
that's actually the secret. Yep.
Hmm. How do you do that? Like, are there ways that you're able to, or strategies over time that you've honed that allow you to just say like, no, this is noise. It's valid for someone else, but my knowledge and my focus is going this direction.
Yeah, I think what's helped me a lot with that is hiring coaches. And I had a really great coach who I worked with about a little over a year ago, who, when we started working together, she even recommended just stop signing up for these newsletters, stop doing this, stop doing that, and just focus on what we're working on together, so that you don't get your messages mixed up, and don't get derailed on what we're learning together. And I was like, yeah, I like that. I like, it was almost like I needed someone to give me permission to do that, because I was, so many of us, especially in different like toddler to teenage stages in our business, still like these freebies and think somebody has the magic answers and they're opt-in or whatever, and or the free class, and which they do sometimes, but what it really boils down to is investing in yourself, and usually having someone coach you or taking a course. Those are what I'm finally realizing, is that's where the focus is, and to really put your energy into that and not get too distracted by shiny new object, whether it be software or another guru or something. You have to be uh, really focused on what you're working on, and then achieving that goal. Like right now, I want to launch a course, and I have it written down on my whiteboard here, and I have it in my goals. But there's times during the day or during the week I'm like, oh, but I want to do this. I'm like, well, do you want to get that course done? It's just so much like, how bad do you want it? And I think just having accountability, coaching, and other peers that understand and can help you through that are the secret. At least it's helped me.
Yeah, totally. I did an interview with Heather Stewart, who you also know.
Yeah,
I forget what number episode we did. It was over the summer at some point, which feels like a decade ago. But
I know, right?
we talked at length about the why, and like that underlying current of, well, why are
Hmm.
you doing what you're doing? Um, and again, I was journaling this morning about like there's a lot of discomfort that comes with kind of going all in and figuring out how do I get to the next level? How do I achieve this goal that I'm wanting to achieve? And finally it boiled down for me to like, well, and I also listened to Seth Godin. This is marketing. I'm sort of spitting a lot out at you, but I'm coming around to my point. Um, but
Yeah.
I was thinking like it really boils down to the fact that I am hurting other people if I don't do what I set out to do. Because there are folks who, and you've seen me pivot through a lot of different things over the last year too, but there are folks who, because they're not able to like say no and set good boundaries and hold that space for themselves, that negatively impacts their life. It negatively impacts their relationships and whatnot. And so something that's been really helpful for me is even just today, like you need to show up because people need this. Like there's someone out there who needs exactly what it is that you're providing. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just think that's a really useful thing, especially being in small business and being your own business owner, to think about like, what does keep me going and what does motivate me to delegate this, because delegating can be really scary, or what motivates me to really show up in my marketing, because marketing can be really scary. So all these different things.
Oh yeah. And I remember I was on Instagram or something just last night and got caught up in the rabbit hole of what are other people doing. And that also is something that I think you have to be careful of, and to set boundaries around what you intake as far as competition or other people. Because, you just spoke on something I think is really important, is the idea of scarcity versus, plentiful, and I think surrounding yourself with peers and groups that definitely understand that there's plenty of work out there is so important, because that scarcity thing, I mean, that's something that a lot of us have grown up with. I mean, I think it dates back to the Depression era, having our grandparents think that there's only so much of things in the world, and so you don't dare use up the tinfoil, or don't use all the milk because it's gonna go away. And that is not our lives right now. It's because of technology and how vast things are changing and improving. We have so much, the world is plentiful, and so I think that mindset is very, very important. And it's taken me a long time to grasp it, but now I think almost COVID's helped that in a weird way, to realize that there's so much out there. And if you start asking for help, people want to help. And I think that's also something that is really important to remember. And it's very uncomfortable and it's really hard to do, but, there's a couple of speakers. Let's see. Oh, Denise, the one woman that wrote, Lucky Bitch, I can't remember her last name, but anyway, she was saying how if you don't learn how to receive, you can't actually intake what the world wants to give you. So you have to learn how to receive. And I've been working on that in the last couple of years, and had someone in our group that she used to come to. She taught me that too. So I've had a lot of guides that have helped me realize, like, it's up to you if you want to get these gifts of the world, whether it be money or other exchanges of different resources. It's really fascinating when you start looking at things that way. It's a different mindset.
Yeah, it is. And I've been surprised because I was doing a lot of intensive networking before COVID hit, and then I was kind of keeping up with it, and then just like broke down in a really big way.
Yeah.
And like, I can't do it. It's like everything was too much. And then over the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks or so, I'm like getting more intentional about diving back into it. And I'm someone who experiences tremendous social anxiety. Like I just super panicked. And I've been really shocked in a lovely way at how often when I have discovery calls with folks, they're just like, well, what do you need? How can I help? Like, what's, and not from a place of like, to a point where I've been a little bit of ashamed of myself, because I don't have, it reads from the other person as a purity of spirit. And I often don't have that purity of spirit myself. It's like, well, what can I get out of this? And how's it going to go? And so it's been a really big learning and eye-opening experience to really reflect on my own motivations and be like, Catherine, you can just give. That's okay. Like the resources are there for you to give.
Yeah.
And also to have that reflected back of, it's all here. Like, how can we help? What can we do? This, that, and the other.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really lovely. I have a whole list of questions I sent you, and we have totally diverted from that.
That's okay.
So I want to circle back a little bit.
Hmm.
How do you as a business owner, because the podcast audience I'm shifting into um,
Hmm.
supporting women in business, however that looks. And so
Hmm.
I'm curious if we mentioned strengths a little bit and like being
Hmm.
more mindful of where your strengths are, but tangibly speaking and practically speaking, what does it look like for you when you go back and you reassess, well, this is kind of working, this is kind of not working? What are the processes and procedures that you use to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I've been doing a lot of experimenting this year, and so, you know, I what I used to go about things in a different way, and I don't like how I used to do them. So now I just do these small experiments, and that helps me test the waters much faster. And actually, again, I got the idea from a coach. I just wasn't applying it very well in the past, where I get feedback from clients before I even launch something. That's really been amazing. So I don't waste a lot of time and energy on this great big idea that I think sounds awesome, but then my clients are like, no, that's not going to land well with us. We want XYZ. You're offering ABC. That's been the biggest opportunity that has really helped me this year. And I think, again, because we were in this weird pandemic, I think I've had less fear about trying things out because everything's so weird right now. Like, I even had one of my own clients say something about, well, what you have to lose. Everyone's in transition. I'm like, yeah, that's true. So um, I think if you're willing to experiment and fail fast, that really does make a difference. It's very scary to start doing that when you're used to being in perfection mode and has to be just right, because your brain will prevent you from actually releasing anything. But I think if you can, run ideas past your best cheerleaders, like those awesome clients that will tell you passionately what they care about, and that really want to see you succeed, those are the people that are going to give you the best feedback. And that has been rung true for me and has been a wonderful surprise in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my best advice: is put the ego aside, try things out, fail fast, learn from them, and then move on and recover quickly.
Yeah. I want to put you on the spot a little
Hmm.
bit here. You
Sure.
had a post a while back on LinkedIn that was something like it was something about boiling everything down to the simplest component. And I
Mm.
forget what exactly that was about, but
Yeah.
that's something I find, in addition to failing fast and like kind of moving through things and experimenting, something that's really challenging is that we're fish in water. And so we can't see what our strengths are because we're we're steeped in them, and we think, oh,
Yeah.
it's easy for me, it's easy for everyone. And so
Hmm.
I'm curious if there are ways that you've been able to kind of boil down and like drill down into what's the essence of what I'm doing that I can build on or shift into or continue with, if this makes sense as a question. I'm sort of
Yeah,
piecing.
I think so. I mean, I think again, it's getting feedback when let's say you're trying out a new service or product, or something that you're wanting to see what happens. Is once you achieve that, it's important to get the feedback from people that experience it, to see if it landed the way it's supposed to, if it actually achieved what you're trying to do. And I know a lot of people are always, not always, but tend to be a little dodgy about getting feedback, and it's awkward and it's hard, but it's really important. And I teach I teach a couple classes at the Small Business Development Center, and it's been wonderful over the years to get feedback because it's helped me improve my teaching. And so I think, again, it's hard for the ego to take this stuff, but it really does help, because you want to, and again, I think, yeah, and then also know who your audience is. Like, I just did this survey with all my clients to see what they're into. I want to make sure I'm speaking to them and using, what TV shows they're watching, what hobbies they have, what are they, who they consider a marketing guru, and all these different things. And it was wonderful, the answers I got back. It made me feel validated that I'm talking and using the right analogies and symbolisms, and a lot of my clients love superheroes. Well, thank God, because that's me too. Like a lot of it was actually reflect almost like a mirror, like we're very similar, but there was some differences. And so I think it's really important to know who you're talking to, and then making sure that your messaging is coming across. And yeah, it is really scary to ask for feedback, but if you build it slowly like that, it's going to be a much better foundation than if you just jump leaps and forwards and then find yourself thousands of dollars in debt, and you're like, oh, this isn't working. I should have started small and grew a little different direction. And I've definitely made those mistakes. That's why I'm saying that. Definitely fall on my face a lot and did different investments that were not safe and not sound. So, but I had to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I can relate to that as well.
Yeah, they're painful. They're very painful, but it humbles you, and then you can relate with other people and know, okay, yep, I've been there. I understand your pain, and it will not always be like this.
No. Yeah. God. What a year it's been for so many reasons.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think something that can be helpful though, because as I look back at those dollars I've spent, that I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I spend so many thousands of dollars on things that didn't benefit me? One of the common threads is that I was not clear with who I am and what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And as soon as I clarified, like, no, I don't, because when I first graduated, I was thinking, oh, I have to do naturopathic medicine the same way that everyone else is doing it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so I bought into a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't need to. And then after the fact, I was like, what are you doing, Catherine? Like, this is ridiculous. You don't like this. You don't want to do this. Why are you putting yourself through the ringer? And I was like, oh, and I was like, I could have saved so much money and time and energy also if I had just stuck to my guns and been true to who I am.
Right. Yeah, well, I can relate with that. But it's interesting when like you said, different transitions and pivots. Like, I've been identifying myself as a web designer for the last 15 years. And so as in the last year, I kind of had a revelation. Yeah, almost exactly a year ago. I was having a rough time. It was a rough fall, winter last year, because I was like, oh, started seeing web design as just a commodity. People didn't want to invest in it the same way as they used to. And it was really hard to swallow that pill and understand that is my new reality. And I knew it was coming, and I'd been told by many peers that this was going to happen. And so it kind of landed in my lap. I was just like, oh, okay. And I had gone to conferences, I'd done all my marketing, and it still wasn't working out. And so I started evaluating other skill sets and things I had, and I realized that maybe I've been going about this all wrong. And I started taking a few certifications and talking to different people, and realized I did have a lot to offer. I just needed to change the lens a little bit. And I really do love coaching and talking to people and helping them and doing the hand holding and showing them the opportunities and resources. And I wasn't even getting to do that as a web designer. It was really just project management, and that's fine, but I really love helping people. And, I'm very passionate about volunteering, and helping people is like, what gives me the serotonin high, and so if I can do that while I work, that's pretty awesome. Right. So it wasn't until was it January of this year, I did some experiments where I did these strategy sessions with some folks. And I couldn't believe how I could just sit down and help them, and how wonderfully they were happily, just almost like they went from being stressed out and worked up until the end of the session. They're just almost like they were light as a feather. I could tell a huge difference in just outpouring what they're trying to figure out with their website or their marketing or whatever, and just having someone to listen to them and just understand that this is hard, and their whole, a lot of times, as a business owner, your whole soul is wrapped up into your work. And so it's hard to spread that out and see it for two different things, because they're usually intertwined pretty tightly. So I saw that in so many of the clients I was working with, and their passion. And so I just try to respect that and help them see a path through all of that, so that you could actually achieve what they wanted to. And it was nice to be able to see that I could do that. And then starting to teach people different tools and methodologies that I use, and that, yeah, they're useful. Oh yeah. It just was like kind of opening up this whole new opportunity to me that I just didn't even think was possible. And that there is a need, like you said, there is something I can offer to people, and keeping it very simple and clear is part of the secret. And I was just so confused before and didn't quite understand that wasn't even an option. I wasn't even allowing myself to see it as an option, and it was wonderful that I was able to break through that almost a year ago, and much happier to sit on the other side of that situation now versus then. It was hard. I was starting to look for part-time jobs. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, so it was a little scary.
Yeah, it's rough moments. Definitely.
Yeah.
What, so aside from, maybe this is the answer, what you just said is the answer to this next question, but what do you find to be the biggest challenge when it comes to being in business for yourself?
I think it is going back to that, trusting other people and hiring, knowing when it's okay to hire a coach or outsource, because it goes back to the E-Myth book. You really can't do it all yourself, and nor should you. I think that book is a really good baseline for making sure that people know that there's a lot of things you can do, but there's some things you just need to get help with to do it right, and not everyone can know everything. It just isn't possible. So, especially like things like accounting or web design, it's really good to outsource that if you can, especially as you grow. And I mean, in the beginning, I think there's certain things you can get by with, but as you want to grow and evolve and make more money, you need to invest in your business.
Yeah.
And I see people resist that, resist so hard, but yeah, that's the exact thing they need to do. And it's hard. It's a hard thing. It's not easy. It takes time to kind of ease into that different mindset of thinking and letting go of the baby, letting someone else be part of that, and trusting them.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that book up. Martin's been telling me to read it for months.
Well, you'll probably read it and you're like, I already know a lot of this because people told me this, but you'll probably just end up skimming it and see, okay, yes, I understand. It might even, yeah, it probably, at this point, it's probably just a mood point, but maybe worth just looking at,
Oh my.
Classic though, right?
Yeah, he has the one for like the E-Myth Lawyer edition. So,
oh wow, nice.
And he's been listening to it, like not on repeat, but every now and then I'll catch it. I'm like, oh, okay, E-Myth.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. So let's circle back to this gift that you have for connecting folks. Remember hearing, I forget what all the different types of people are, but definitely connectors are one of them. And you have such a tremendous gift at like just building networks. And some of that is just like baked into who you are as a person. But I'm curious, like, where do you think that comes from? Are there skills that you've cultivated in yourself to be better at it? Are you just naturally a people person? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on how you're so good at this.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's taken me a long time to kind of understand what was going on. And it probably started in high school when I'd walk into a room and I'd just be able to read everything going on. And I think it was almost too much to understand what was happening. And then, I wasn't exactly happy where I was in high school. I don't know, a lot of people were. So there was all the hormones and everything going on. So it wasn't exactly like my choice. So I think once I got into college, it got a lot more fun. I was just like, oh, okay, I can help people. So I lived in Germany for a year as an exchange student, and one of the things that I thought was really fun was to bring people together with food. And so I lived on a floor with some Germans, but it's people from all over the world. Like there was a lady from China, there was a guy from Greece. It was great. It was a quite diverse group, and so every once in a while I get a hankering for Mexican food, which is very hard to find in Germany in the 90s. I don't think it's that even much easier now, but they don't eat spicy food. Like it was, so anyway, I'd figure out where to source the actual food to make, and then we'd have like a taco night. And of course, all those people are like, what the hell are you making? They're like, what are you doing now, you weird American? Pretty much that's what they called me and my friends. But we'd have these awesome nights where we introduce new food to people, and it was so much fun. And I could tell people really loved it, and it was a great way to bring people together. And I remember just realizing that, well, like food can bring people together, like other things can too. And I just remember kind of figuring that out. And then, out of college, like, missing kind of those connections with people, I just started creating more of those, and with the people I met through different work or other friends of friends. And, it's just evolved. And then I think luckily I married a guy that does the same thing. And so we kind of combine forces and bring people together over different events or food. And, but I definitely can recognize that people, like I can immediately sense somebody's mood, and if they're kind of introverted, extroverted within just a few minutes or seconds. Like, it's really interesting, and how I can kind of help conversation and mediate and just help a room be better. And I love that I have that gift, and want to use it for good and help people feel more connected. Because I think it was one thing in high school that was so hard to see, is so many disconnects. It was just, I think that's what really bothered me, is just these little cliques and these, people that are on the outside, people on the inside. And I understood all of it, and I couldn't change it. So luckily, as an adult, I can change that, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. You and I have talked about this, but I remember the first time I walked into that room when the Wonder Woman meetings were happening in person.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even graduated yet from school, but I was like, well, let me start getting out there and doing my thing. And I was so petrified. I was like, I'm not a professional. I don't belong here. This is like imposter syndrome to boot,
right, yeah.
plus social anxiety, plus like all the other stuff that is part of who I am. Just like, oh no, this is gonna be bad. And I remember sitting down, and it was seamless. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm okay. It's gonna be all right. And just that gift of easing someone into a new situation where it's like, crap, like I don't really want to be networking, but I need to be networking. And then I so tremendously appreciate just that singular moment where it's like, no, you do belong, Catherine. Like, it's okay. Come on in. And you never said that to me. You never said, oh, you belong, Catherine, whatever. But you were so, like, you're questioning and just being open for conversation, and whatever it was made the difference. So anyway.
Well, I'm glad. I definitely, like I said, I can sense when people, I can sense so much, and sometimes it's overwhelming. And, like big parties, sometimes, I didn't realize for a long time why, I'm a people person. I like but wait, sometimes it's too much. And it's because I can just read the whole room, and it's just like, oh, all the energy and emotions come at me at once, and it's not very fun to deal with. So I have to kind of break it into smaller groups, and I realize a lot of people like that too. And that actually builds better relationships overall. So I try to create that as much as possible.
Yeah. How do you deal with that? Obviously we're all virtual now, but if you're in a group of people, how do you cope with like all the things are coming in at once and what's going on where? Do you have a way that you're able to sort of filter stuff out, or do you just kind of take the wave as it comes?
Yeah, that's what I've been working on the last couple of years, because I think I just finally kind of came to terms with it. A lot of times, I just, if I walk into a room and it's just like, whoa, I usually step away. I physically will walk away and go into a smaller room and maybe bring a couple people with me, and I realize they're happy I did that. So I know that I'm not the only one. There's definitely those extreme extroverts that, the people that talk over people that are just not aware, and they're like, I tell you, I'm going to hold you hostage for the next 5 minutes and tell you everything I know. And you're like, oh yeah, okay, no, I'm going to grab onto these ambiverts and introverts. We'll go over here, and it's like, I know, like I kind of know what's going to happen before it happens. It's really funny. So, but yeah, it's one of those things where I know what I want, so I can kind of create it, and I know what other people want too. So.
I'm really fascinated with everything that you're saying, because I didn't think of you as being like a sensitive person in that way, and it makes complete sense to me that you are. And I love, it seems like as my life progresses, I meet more and more people who have this sense of just like, we pick up on all the stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And I did an interview with someone I graduated with, Alisha Bruton, and
Hmm.
she studies ADHD in kids at OHSU. Um, and I need to touch, I haven't talked with her in a while, but last we talked, she
Yeah.
was going to be shifting her research into like high sensitivity trait and
Hmm.
how that, like, what does the neuroscience have to do with that, and like personality, and kind of how all these different things come together. And it's the reason it's so interesting to me is because when I was a kid, it was like, oh, Catherine, you're too sensitive. Oh, you shouldn't feel this way. Or, oh, what's wrong with you? Or whatever it is. And even still, because Martin is not that way, right? My husband,
Yeah.
Martin.
Yeah.
And you've met him, you know how he is.
Oh yeah,
He's a
sure.
lovely man, but he like
Hmm.
doesn't quite get it. So I'll come into a room or whatever, and I'm like, I gotta go. And he's like, but it's fine. I'm like, no.
Hmm.
Like, I'll see you later. Have fun. And he and I have gone
Yeah.
to networking events together where he's like having the time of his life, and it's just like a packed room. And I'm just like, I'm about to die. I'm not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Um,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so we'll leave, and he's like, "Oh, that was great," and I'm just like humpy and angry, and he's like, "Okay."
Sure.
So we stopped going to networking events together. Was the long and short of that one.
Well, that's good. You guys recognize that early on. That just can be such a miserable situation yeah. It's better to kind of conquer and decide what works best. Yeah, that's hard, and it's hard when there's couples or friends that realize that about each other and have to kind of have a talk around it. And um, yeah, I definitely was like labeled a sensitive child, and same exact thing. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? I cried a ton as a kid. Oh my God. And just was like, that was not okay. So but as an adult, things have changed. Now I'm realizing that my sensitivity is a superpower, and I realize that I have a husband who supports that, and I have a lot of friends who told me that that's a good thing. And so it's wonderful to accept that now and use it and not try to hide it. And I think that's what a lot of us can benefit from if we start, but like, I think just something I've been doing the last 8 months is just journaling. It sounds like you journal a lot too. And that's really helped me come to terms with my strengths and the ups and downs of life and how to interpret things. But again, surrounding yourself with people that will point out your strengths to you and help reinforce that and help you understand that there's all these great qualities that you need to focus on. Don't focus on the negatives. It's just, I don't know, like, I think this whole COVID thing's made this whole mindset really easier for me to grasp than it ever has been, because it's just, things are just so simple, and there's just not a lot of distraction. Like, even this time of year, like, I would have a ton more going on, and I'm really appreciative that things are just very simple. So
Yeah. So when it comes to, I have two last questions, and I'm mindful of the time. So you know that I've made this pivot into supporting women and setting good boundaries. And um, for me, my sensitivity has been really helpful because that has sort of fed into me being able to say no. And also, my mom is very comfortable with her no in many ways and modeled that
yeah.
really well for me when I was growing up. But I'm curious for you, as a woman in business, someone who is very empathetic and empathic and sensitive to other folks, what is it like for you to be able to say no? What is that experience? What are your hangups? Just anything you're
Mhm.
willing to share about that experience.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that webinar. That was a great training to help me have some new tools to use when it comes to boundary setting, because it's something I've been working on for a long time. But I feel like as of recently, I don't know, I have a better grounding. I've been working with a couple different people on it. So I think as a recovering people pleaser, it's hard to say no. But what I'm learning, or however, what I'm learning is that by saying no, it opens up opportunities for other things, because I'm learning and discovering that if I pause and somebody asks me a question and I go, is this what I really want? There's usually an answer right away.
Mhm.
But I can always but one of the things you taught me, and one of the things I'm learning, is I can always ask for time, or, give myself a break, and just, a day or some time to think about things, and I don't have to necessarily give an answer right away, which is great. And, I have put these things in practice and seen good results. And, sometimes I'll go a little too far and be very, set a strong boundary and kind of go, oh, maybe that was a little too harsh, but that's how you learn. And people usually are more forgiving than you think they are,
For sure.
That's something that actually I challenged myself the month of October to set new boundaries, and it was great. I definitely had some more time to myself. I got to work on some other things that I wanted to work on. Yeah, I saw more positive than negative come out of it. So I think it's good to experiment with saying no, or like, I think some of the phrases you taught me, like, not necessarily say no, but I love you considered me for this. I really like to do it, but this is not a good time. How about you talk to this person, or how about or a compromise, or a negotiation, like, oh, how about, I can't give you 10 hours a week. How about I give you 5, or, something like that. There's always different ways to look at things. And I think that also just giving myself permission to see things from different angles, so that it's not all black and white. That's another kind of thinking I'm really working on, is that abundance mindset versus the closed mindset. Like, it's something I see they're teaching that in schools, which is wonderful. I wish I would learned it earlier, but I'm learning it now. And so just seeing that maybe the answer isn't as obvious as you think. Maybe there's a different answer that will help solve this person's challenge and make you very happy. So
That's a big piece of it in our house, is that, like, things will come up and it's a crisis right away, and one or the other of us will be like, well, let's give it, like, can we come back to it in a half hour? Or, like, it may not be that we have days or weeks to think about it, but, like, let's just take a pause and kind of brainstorm for a few minutes and see what's available. And that's usually, not always, but like 97% of the time, there's like some other way of working a situation that's not just yes or no. That's like, oh, well, we can meet in the middle this way, or we can compromise in this way. And so I appreciate that you shared that, and just being able to slow conversations down. You don't have to say anything right away. And I think I referenced in that webinar, but ever since I read her book, like, this is the one thing that stuck with me, was from Rue McClanahan. And she got married, I don't know how many times, but many times she was married. And she says in her autobiography, if I had just learned this one phrase, let me think about it, like, my life would have been a completely different story, because she wouldn't have just jumped into yes from the start. So thank you for sharing that experience. So now I want to come back around to your expertise, which is marketing. And I confess that I do my own marketing, and I also am helping Martin with his marketing. And it's such a process. And so I'm curious, outside of delegating and like hiring someone else, which is like the obvious, that's the first thing to do, but what do you find most small business owners are missing when they're thinking about marketing or executing their marketing plans?
Well, the first big things I see, and I've done this myself too, is the roller coaster ride of, like, everything's great. You have a lot of clients, so I don't have time for marketing. I'm too busy. It's not a priority. And then, all of a sudden it's, 2 months later, like, oh no, my client's drying up. Oh no, what am I going to do? I need more work. Oh shoot, I guess I better do the marketing now, because now I need work. And so it's that crazy, ride. And I've seen myself do it. I see my peers do it. It's pretty common. So I think the key to all this is being consistent, and sending out that newsletter twice a month or once a month, posting on social media, even 2 times a week is better than none. It's like, I think that's what I'm learning as I teach, is like, I'm suggesting these minor things to do on a regular basis. And people are like, wow, you're giving me permission to only post twice a week. I'm like, well, yeah, of course. Like, I know that you're overwhelmed. Let's just start out with that and see where it goes. And other tips and tricks. And it's just about what's you can manage all the time, because you can't just, marketing doesn't work like randomly. It's very, you're being consistent, and that way if it's working or not. Going back to like you're saying, how do you know if things are successful? Well, if you've been posting or sending a newsletter out over the course of 6 months, you can go back and see, well, was it successful if I sent it out at 6 a.m. or is it better if I send it out on a Saturday, or is anyone reading this? Or it's good to have some measurements of time markers and some chunks of data so you can actually see if it's working.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just sporadic marketing is just sporadic, and it's really you don't know if it's working, and it's usually pretty loosey-goosey as far as if it is working or not.
Yeah, for sure. That's my word for 2021 is consistency.
Yeah. And if you get some, if you get scheduling tools and blocking your time and you maybe have a bunch of content written up that you can repurpose, it doesn't have to be so hard. And that's what I'm also teaching people. And I've learned a lot this year on regards to that I didn't realize. So I have my own gurus that are showing me what's possible. So I can share that with other people. And it's insane if you really are maybe set aside a half a day a month and just write and concentrate on what you can create, and then repurpose that in a blog and a newsletter. And you do a video and you transcribe that, and that becomes little mini blog posts or little mini social media posts. And there's all kinds of ways to do it that doesn't have to be original. And in fact, you don't want to keep posting the new stuff. You want to repost things because it resonates differently at the times you post it. It's just everything people think is a lot of times it's opposite of what is true. That's what I'm always, especially marketing.
Yeah, that's a really big thing that I've learned over the last month, even like not even, but just it's okay to reuse the same stuff. Because I was like, oh, I have to make new things all the time every day, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, just say the same thing, especially because of the algorithms on all the platforms if you're using social media. And so people don't necessarily see it. And then also because of the volume of content out there, even if you see it, it doesn't necessarily click. And so just like, it's okay. And then watching people who I've watched you do this too. And I've been like, oh, it's okay to do this, where you will post kind of literally the same thing on LinkedIn over and over again. I'm like, oh, right, Nedra does that thing. Okay. And I'm like, oh, Catherine, you forgot that she did that thing and she posted the same thing again. And now you remember that she does that. Like that's how this works.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been really helpful to watch you and then some other folks that I follow on social who are just so hyper focused and so targeted. And I finally was like, I need to do this. Like, I need to decide what my niche is or my niche and get in there and just be so specific. And I have to tell you that I was so anxious about it, like terrified to just, say, and this is from Seth Godin, but like, who are my people? Who are my people? And since I've done it, it's been profound. Like the shift in engagement I've seen for the better. And I'm just like, oh, there's something.
I went through that. I was when I was doing the web design focus, I was marketing towards lawyers, and I was terrified because I was just like, then I can't work with anyone else, or what's going to happen. But actually, there was some effectiveness, and people were identifying and going, yeah, this is okay. Yes, I do understand your needs, and I am speaking to you. And people love it when you, like I said, if you know your clients, like I think it's really good to do surveys and get feedback on what they're interested in, so you can actually speak to them and know that it's going to land well. I think that's one of the best things you can do. So yeah, it's so great that you clarified on that. And I know it's really scary, but worst you can do is like, well, you do it and then nothing happens, and then, well, you might as well try something else. It's actually it's the worst that can happen is really not that bad. And once you realize that, it's worth taking that risk.
Yeah. My second to last question for you is, and this is just something that I struggle with, and I'm always curious to hear other folks' thoughts and experience, which is, how do you know when you need to hang tough because it hasn't been long enough for people to see your stuff or be aware of what you're
Mhm.
doing and really understand what that is. And how do you know when it's time to like change a story, figure out a new way, figure out a new approach?
Yeah. Um, I think when you've given it the best college try possible, I was in that shoes a year ago. I had spoken at a conference, I attended a conference, I did multiple things, and it had not sunk in very well. It did not accomplish what I wanted. So I knew that I had done my best in the marketing you know, I worked with. So I think, um, yeah, that's a hard one. I think it's just different for everybody. But I think once you kind of see that you're hitting a dead end, um, also it's also good to get perspective from other people too, and make sure that it's just not just you. Is there something else happening? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it could be you're just the best kept secret, and you're just not talking to the right people. If there's anything I've learned this year, business is all about relationships. It's all about who you know to some extent, and how you can build that trust. And if you're not doing much of that, then that could be really what's the problem is. It's not, you could post all day, but if you're not actually talking to people and setting up those discovery calls, or those sales calls of any kind, then nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
That was definitely good advice from a coach I got, is like, make room for those discovery calls, because that's really where the sales happen. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
For sure. Oh, thank you so much for taking the time. I have so enjoyed talking to you. It's been a real pleasure to hear more about your experience and learn some new things about you and pick your brain about some of my little marketing questions. um, and my very last question
Yeah.
is, if folks are interested in learning more about you and connecting with you, how can they do that?
Yeah. I'm really active in LinkedIn. I post that pretty much, every day of the week. And um, that's a great way to connect. I definitely have some fun things going on LinkedIn. And then my website, nedrarezinas.com, definitely has some new content coming up soon. And is a good way you can sign up for my newsletter there, and learn more about what I'm working on. There's some fun stuff coming up for the next year for sure.
Yeah, I saw that you have, was it marketing sprints?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm working on those. I'm very excited. Yeah.
I was like, ooh, keep me up to date when that happens.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Is there anything else you wanted to share? Any last minute thoughts?
No, this is really great speaking with you, and just like the format. It's fun. It feels like, we really are in the same room and just having this really great conversation. Like you said, not just 30 minutes, but like, a relaxing amount of time. I really appreciate that.
For sure. All right. Well, thanks again.